Welcome everybody to today's Tech Huddle. Our presenter this week is Jonathan with Wonder. And with that, Jonathan, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you everyone for joining, much appreciated. And it's definitely helpful to know where everyone's from and also, what you're doing in the space. So in terms of my background, I have a younger brother and first cousin on the spectrum who are nonverbal. So I started Wonder roughly 9 years ago. But today we're really focused on transition, particularly at a higher level. So I don't love the labels, but mostly people will refer to our target audience as individuals on the mild to moderate side in terms of disabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Thank you so much, Dustin, for having me on the Tech Huddle. Been excited for a while, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and I will just dive right in. All right, so since this is a Tech Huddle, I'm going to start with the technology focus of our platform, but towards the end, I'll go over, as you'll see, it's a curriculum that was designed for the classroom. So there are lesson plans, there are also printed workbook activities that you can use, but I think the audience is generally interested in tech here. So I'm going to go ahead and give a little overview and then start with that. So our transition curriculum, it's designed for students that are 14 and older. Right now, it's being used in grades 7 through 12, 18 plus programs, and one community college. So a pretty wide audience of individuals who are using the platform. And we designed it to be at a bit of a higher academic level just because it's really an emerging space in terms of being a real focus. So 18 plus programs, they have a lot more flexibility in terms of timing to deliver these things. And obviously it's a huge focus there. School systems are now building classes and electives around this. So it's really a space that is getting a lot more attention lately. And so there wasn't really much out there in terms of a comprehensive curriculum. And so that's why we put together our transition curriculum for students who are going on to post-secondary settings. The curriculum itself, it focuses on the 8 soft skills that employers say are most critical to success in the workplace. And that is out of some research from the Zarrow Center out of the University of Oklahoma. And so those 8 areas are identifying personal strengths, interpersonal skills, cultivating communication skills, building self-advocacy, identifying and overcoming challenges, setting personal goals, developing self-determination, and exploring career options. I'm not going to go too deep into the scope and sequence and all the different content areas. I'll just give a bit of a high level today. And usually I do start with the scope and sequence and the structure, but like I said, this is a Tech Huddle, so I will dive right into the technology side of things. So what I just am going to go ahead and do now is sign in as an educator into Wonder Academy. So that's our curriculum platform. Our main focus is transition. We include with that financial literacy, in addition to workplace safety, but we do have a social emotional learning curriculum as well. So you might see some of that, but today we're going to focus on transition. So because I'm logged in as an educator, we designed to make the platform very user-friendly. And so I just have these 3 tabs here. Basically, everything can be done for my courses. So I'm going to jump in there and I'll be able to access all my courses. And so in terms of the delivery model, there's a lot of flexibility. I think the online piece probably shows that the most, where it can be done completely as independent work and students can kind of be self-paced, but also about 50% of the time it's being used as classroom instruction and whole group instruction, or a mix of both of those. And so you can see I have 16 courses in here, but the ones with the bubbles here are the transition courses, and that's what we're going to be focused on today. For those who are interested, we just released a free vaping course, vaping and tobacco course to prevent vaping and tobacco use in school systems. So that'll be free, but I will try not to get off track here. So I'm going to jump into one of our courses here, setting personal goals, and jump straight into the technology side. So I have this preview button whenever I'm inside of a course. And if I click on that, this will essentially bring up the exact same view that a student sees when they are logged into our platform. And so this is used for two different purposes. Because I'm logged in as a teacher, as I mentioned before, a lot of the lessons, all of the lessons really, can be used as whole group instruction or independent work. The pieces where students should really be logged in on their own device are the pre-course assessments. We have post-course assessments and end-of-unit assessments, and I'll be showing what those assessments look like a little later. But I'm going to go ahead and start with some of the lesson content. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 122 lessons. There is about an hour worth of content depending on how you deliver them. And so I'm going to give you a taste of what some of this content looks like. So firstly, we have a lot of video content in here. So we'll have basically a video at the beginning of every single lesson. They all vary. For example, this one happens to be in a British accent. The rest are not, but we happen to like this one a lot. So I'm going to show a couple of those, and that's where I'll kind of kick things off. But as I said, you can kind of project this onto a smartboard, or students can run through this on their own.
When it comes to chasing our dreams, the only way I know to track our progress is to create milestones. Milestones show us what we are accomplishing and allow us to see how we accomplish even more. If you have stopped to read any of the statistics or articles on goal setting before, you will have read two things. One, people without goals are not as successful as they hope to be.
And so as you can see here, we do have closed captioning in all of our videos. I'm going to go ahead right now and show some accommodations that we made sure were enabled in our videos, but we did not build these. These are Google's. I'll show our own built-in accommodations as we get to some of the text content and some of the assessment content. But in terms of the accommodations built in for the videos, these are just great to know if you're using YouTube videos and Google in general, for those that do have closed captioning. So one, a lot of school systems today, most of them are dealing with students who are ELL or ESL students, so their native language is a whole variety of languages. And so you do have this translation feature in here where you can use kind of auto-translate to translate the subtitles into a bunch of different languages. I'm just going to give a quick example of Spanish. And also, if you feel your students need it, you could also slow down the playback on these videos. So that's just helpful to know for instruction in general.
2, people who don't write down goals are less likely to accomplish them. What I have found
all right, so I'll show a couple examples, one more example of that type of video in a second, but I'd like to show the other type of video that we have dispersed throughout all of the courses. And so these are videos that don't necessarily focus on the concepts themselves. They're more focused on engaging the student, showing how they're relevant to the student. So for example, we'll have sports in here, pop culture, we'll have individuals with disabilities sharing their own experiences. So it might be celebrities with ADHD or individuals with autism or Down syndrome, a whole kind of variety, and they'll be kind of dispersed throughout all of our courses. So this one is just a Nike commercial. It's a consideration piece if students are going through this themselves, but if they are, if they're being used in a classroom, there are some discussion points as well here.
This time, I'm the only one working. I was told to quit. Coaches never noticed. That was just my motivation. To work harder than everyone else. While you were sleeping, I've already done 150 suicides, run 3 miles. My game might not be perfect.
So we'll have all sorts of videos. They really vary, but as you can see, we usually have some consideration pieces with them. So obviously this one ties to goals and motivation. But I'm going to jump into just one more example video, and then I'll show our text-based accommodations that we have for the text components. So just to show a bit of a mix, we do have videos in here as well that will be human-focused, that will be animated. So I'm just going to go ahead and show one of those real quickly.
A new school year is about to start, filling these classrooms with students. Each student has their own interests, their own dreams. They each learn in their own way at their own pace, and each one will set their goals for what they want to learn and achieve.
So as you can see, it's really a whole variety of video content we have in there. We're always happy to connect with people, give them demo licenses to access everything, or bite-sized content if they like it, so they can take a deeper dive. But in terms of the rest of the content, it's all basically text associated with diagrams and images. And the text is at roughly a 4th grade reading level. So we took basically the average reading level in high school for the student population that we're focused on. But we do have a few accommodations built in here as well. And so I'm going to show some of those right now. So we have built-in text-to-speech for all of our assessments and all of our instructional content. So just so you know, this is exactly what the student sees if they log into their own device. So they can basically adjust these on their own. They're empowered to set up their own accommodations. Of course, you can help them with that. Since I'm just in preview mode as a teacher, this will just change the accommodations for my own preview as I play this for a classroom or preview this for my students.
Example, Jenny. No, Jenny's goals to work with babies is not specific enough. There are many jobs that would enable her to work with young children.
And so the voices here, they're based on whatever you have set in your Chrome browser. There are some options here like text highlighting, autoplay, speech rate, things along those lines. The other accommodation we have in here, and this has come as a request from many, many school systems, is our translation feature. And so right now we have 62 languages in here. Whenever Microsoft adds additional languages, we add them as well to our language library. And so I'm just going to go ahead and click on one of the translations here, Spanish, because we have text-based translations, but we also have text-to-speech for a lot of the translations for the 10 most common languages, because we're hearing a lot from school systems that a lot of their students aren't necessarily literate in their native language, but they're very fluent in their native language otherwise. So I'm going to just go ahead and show what those translation features look like.
No, los objetivos de Jenny de trabajar con bebés no son lo suficientemente específicos. Hay muchos trabajos que le permitirían trabajar con niños pequeños.
And so again, all of those settings are tied to your general text-to-speech setting. And then last one that we have in here is just a Zoom feature where you're able to control the Zoom for students. Or they're able to control for themselves. You can use it while you're presenting, that sort of thing. So the next type of content that we have in here will be the assessment content. And so we do have, within lessons, we'll have activities where we do show educators and teachers the answers that students have provided if they want to jump into that. But they're more geared towards being learning activities, whereas where we track student progress, so there's more in these pre and post assessments and end of unit assessments. So I'm going to go ahead and just show a few of the examples of those. And so I'll just show, we have some matching activities here where you can kind of click or drag and drop the right answer to the right place. We will have multiple choice questions. We'll have also some fill in the blank questions. Let's see, true, false, fill in the blank. We also have questions where students are putting things in the right category or putting them in the right order, all questions that can be automatically graded. They have a correct or incorrect response, and we will provide that data on how well they are learning the concepts themselves. There's one other type of assessment question that I want to show before I show the data reporting. And so I'm just going to jump into another course here, but we do have these types of questions that I'm about to show. We do have them in all the courses, and so they are a little more thought-provoking, and I'll just show an example right here. It's basically free response type questions. And so if you look at the format, they'll all have the same format where they are short answer or long answer. And so students will type in their response here and submit it, and the question will be manually graded by the teacher. Now, students don't have to do these if they're not necessarily focused on writing. teachers don't have to grade these. If they do, the students will see the grade, and if you provide feedback, they'll see that right away, and you'll have a writing sample. So that's the other type of assessment in here. Now, the other thing that I wanted to show real quick on the technology side is the data reporting piece. And so again, I'm still in my courses. I just picked a course, and I clicked on one of my students. And so here I'll have the data from the course. So if they've completed it, I'll have their final grade, and when they've started and completed the course. I'll have their pre and post assessment scores here. I can jump in and view the individual answers of students. I can also provide feedback here if I'd like. And then we have a lot of features that I'm not going to dive too deeply in, but you could have students retake the assessment. If this is done as independent work, you're able to choose a few options where students can either go at their own pace, or you could set checkpoints to make sure that the students actually spent the time on the assessments, and it's clear they weren't just guessing at the answer before you let them move on. So this is helpful in kind of reviewing answers if you're trying to make sure that students are focused on this as well, if they're doing it independently. So that is a nice overview of the technology side of the platform. And as people, if people have questions on anything that I've explained, or they want to see other content, maybe something from our self-advocacy course or something like that, exploring career options, then I'd be happy to show that towards the end. So yeah, feel free to shoot any questions in the chat. I can't see it right now, but I know Dustin mentioned that he would share with me if there are any questions. And that transition curriculum, and also the last thing I'll show is on the tech side is that in terms of our support, we have a lot of ways where we provide support, and we do have one of those is we always have someone in this built-in chat right here. So if you're ever using it in a classroom and you have some minor questions on how to do something, or you run into like any login issues or anything like that, you could always reach us right away here. But we're always happy to connect by phone and email and set up virtuals to help you out that way as well. Now, let me see. I'm pretty good on timing, but I'm just going to show a couple other types of content that we have in here. So I mentioned earlier that we also have a couple other components with every lesson that really tie to the online pieces, and those will be the lesson plans and the workbook materials. And so for those of you who are familiar, all of our lesson plans are aligned to the Common Core state standards, TEKS if you're in Texas, and we do work with a number of schools in the other states and kind of building out and mapping those standards for them. We also, for those of you who are familiar, are aligned to the pre-ETS or pre-ETS requirements of vocational rehabilitation organizations and WIOA. So we really tried to cover all our bases. We're tied to Indicator 13, which is basically the indicator that focuses on transition that schools need to follow as part of the IDEA Act. So, but with that, I'm just going to go ahead and show some of the lesson plans. So this is a sample unit from our self-advocacy course. Now, I don't need to show too many lesson plans because they all have the same exact look and feel. So for students in grades 7 through 12, we do have the Common Core state standards and Texas alignment here. It is helpful for those students. Oftentimes we hear from 18+ programs that they're not really focused on the standards anymore, but it's just good to know that they're there. We do have the objective of the lesson, the goals, the key ideas, the vocabulary that's going to be introduced, and then our recommended lesson steps. These are recommended if you're focused on kind of a whole group instruction plus small group instruction plus independent work model where you're combining all of those. But obviously, if you're just using this as independent work or in other ways, these won't necessarily apply. And I'll touch on what the connect to home activities are in a sec. But so alongside all of the online lessons, which really focus on the concepts, we have a lot of activities in every lesson that will really tie this content to the student themselves and make for great pieces either to bring into IEP meetings or just great things for students to have in transition portfolios, or that are just things that are important for them to know and take with them as they go on to post-secondary settings. So in this lesson, in the online piece, students are learning a lot about rights and responsibilities with employers and school systems in terms of having a disability, and when they might want to disclose that they have a disability, what the benefits are of that, what the rights are in that sense. So in this activity, which could be printed out, the students are naming their disability, how it affects them at work, what accommodations they need and that they've used in the past, and then what is their proof of disability, because they'll need that to show to any employer. Another example here that I'll show is one that focuses on transition and post-secondary goals. And so we have an entire course on post-secondary goals, but in this lesson it's more specific. Students are learning a bit about short-term and long-term goals and how they can tie that into planning for their transition IEP meeting, really leading their transition planning. So leading their goals or what they want to do after school. And so in the online piece, we will have videos of students leading their own IEP meetings, individuals with disabilities talking about their own experiences, things like that. And so here in this lesson, the activities to go along with it, one, we have like a nice one-pager that students can bring into their IEP meeting where you have, from their perspective, their strengths, interests, abilities, what they want to do after high school, and the kind of living arrangements they want to have. Good for them to take into an IEP meeting to really promote their participation. Another lesson here, this one is just one that focuses on concepts around goals that we're teaching. So I'm going to jump through that. We will also have partner work in the workbook. We feel that's very important. So getting students interacting, working with partners, sharing their responses with the classroom, that sort of thing. And then the last example that I'm going to show from this unit is that at the end of every unit, we do have Connect Home activities. And the idea here is to pull parents into the whole transition process and whatever the unit is focused on. So for this unit, it will be students working with family members to identify a few SMART post-secondary goals and the strategies they'll use to ensure success in meeting those goals. The idea is that they can also then come to IP meetings and kind of work with students on that as well. Another type of Connect Home activity we'll have in here is things like mock interviews, things where students are working with parents to actually work on finding jobs and filling out job applications. So here I'm not going to spend as much time, but just to give an example of some variety. So here we have example resumes and activities where students have a structure here to work on writing their resume, and then the same thing for cover letters. So this will tie to what they're learning online in that lesson, filling out job applications, that sort of thing. And so yeah, it's very comprehensive, full scope and sequence here for all the lessons and units in each course. And so we really tried to cover all of those soft skills that, again, the Zara Center and University of Oklahoma have found that employers say are most critical to success for really any individual, but students that are transitioning especially. Dustin, do we have any questions?
We do. Yeah, we had a question come in. I'm just going to read it to you. With regards to the transition lesson, can students insert their input into the document, or does it have to be printed and handwritten?
So we actually do get that question quite a bit because now schools love to be kind of tech only. We are starting to provide these as writable PDFs. We were a bit hesitant there just because these things tend to get shared around very quickly, throughout schools and to friends. But it's been requested so many times that we are going to be providing writable PDFs where students can write their answers in and save those. But on the platform itself, we don't have an actual piece of it where students would be filling this out. So again, it would just be delivered as a PDF that students can then write in the different sections.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So that is basically a nice overview of the various types of content we have in here, the activities we have in here. I believe I have a few more minutes. So if there are any more questions, just send them my way. But I will just show, another quick video here, I guess, from our Building Self-Advocacy course. So let me just jump into there. Here, I think this one has an interesting example video, if I recall correctly. I think it's on page 22. So hopefully I have that correct. Yeah, so this is one of those videos I was referring to. We'll have celebrities. This one focuses on celebrities with ADD, but we focus on a wider spectrum. So we will have autism and Down syndrome and other things in here as well.
I wondered why I couldn't organize my thoughts.
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder presents significant challenges to millions, but these people show that ADHD doesn't have to limit you. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 inspirational people with ADHD.
I was such a aggressive and tough player, but everybody's got feelings.
For this list, we're looking at people with ADHD, previously known as ADD, who have worked hard to meet the challenges associated with their condition and make their mark on the world.
So a nice example of videos, they'll go through everything from athletes to pop culture celebrities to CEOs of companies. So they show like a nice variety in here. But that's just another example that we have in here. But since it looks like, I have about a few minutes left here, I will mention that you can easily reach us by going to Oneder.com. By the way, we spell Wonder Oneder, so like the number one. For some who have seen the movie, they might enjoy the joke about the Oneders, but that is the way we spell Wonder. It's focused on kind of the individual student and their individual needs. So yeah, you could always come on here, request a demo, check out our other curricula as well, our social emotional learning curriculum. And yeah, I think that covers everything unless there are additional questions.
Great. And actually, Jonathan, I did share a link to your website with everybody in the chat. So if you want to quickly get there, there's a link there in the chat for everyone. Yeah, please throw any questions that you have in there. Actually, I have a question. What percentage of the learners are doing most of the curriculum in the lesson in a classroom setting versus kind of a self-study on a device in their home or somewhere else?
Mm-hmm. For the most part, it's primarily used in the classroom.
Okay.
And that is partly because that's heavily where we've been, focused. And it'll be done in the classroom, but we do have situations where some schools just don't have the ability to provide transition within their curriculum. They still haven't mapped out a time in really teaching these to students who maybe they feel need to focus on academics and testing. So we do have some situations where students are doing this on their own. We also work with some virtual schools, and with those, it's a great way for them to do independent work. But even in classrooms, a lot of times it's kind of delivered as independent work to some students who this is appropriate for. But oftentimes there's a wide mix, and so half the students or even just a few students might be doing this as independent work, whereas the others might be focused on something else. So there's definitely a mix.
Okay.
But we're definitely usually working with educators, 18 plus programs, that sort of thing.
Okay. And I'm assuming that the teachers will be logging in to an account, so it's web-based, right? Is there an option if the schools want to have the curriculum, license the content basically, and then display the curriculum in their own LMS? Is that an option?
So right now for this platform, we haven't focused on any integrations.
Okay.
There are for the PDFs, they do have a lot of ways to integrate those within their LMS systems. We've had previous products where we really did focus on that integration piece, but we found that it's better to just start off simple. So with our curriculum platform, there's no integration to LMS systems at this point.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially if there's the option for the student to do it outside of the classroom. You want to have one place where they can go. So makes sense.
Definitely.
Well, if anybody else has any questions, it's your last chance to throw them in there. Jonathan, really appreciate you jumping on and showing us this. I think the first time that we had talked, I was driving and couldn't see anything. So this is great for me to actually see what this looks like, and appreciate you taking time out of your day to show us this.
No, I really appreciate you having me. Always loved Disability Scoop, and love being kind of on the program and part of your tech huddle. I think it's a great resource.
Great, thank you.
I did see something pop up, I think, in the Q&A, website information.
Oh.
So that's in the chat, but yeah, the website is right here. It's oneder.com. So I'll just type the answer there.
I will do the same. Thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I need to pay attention to the Q&A instead of just the chat.
No problem.
Well, thank you. Leslie says, awesome. Thanks for the information. Yes, I agree. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everybody, for attending today's Tech Huddle. We do have one next week, and off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is. But if you go to disabilitycocoon.com, you can see all of the Tech Huddles that we have scheduled. We have them scheduled out through the rest of this year. And then we'll have more coming in 2020. Jonathan, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dustin. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Have a good day, everyone.